Mayayakin.
Manyak.
Pandak.
Sipit.
Lawit. 56% of all students have witnessed bullying at school.
15% of all students skips class because of bullying.
71% of all students report that bullying is an ongoing problem.
Isa sa 10 mga estudyante ang lumilipat ng eskwelahan dahil sa pangbubuli.
282,000 students are reportedly attacked in high school throughout the nation in each month.
It is believed that 61% of students believe other students bully because they've been victims of physical violence at school and at home.
The statistics of 2010 show that students are still getting bullied throughout the internet and cyberbullying is still going on.
Social networking has provided an entirely new environment for bullying to take place.
Kada taon, meron tayong 2.7 million na estudyanteng nabubuli. At meron tayong 2.1 estudyanteng nabubuli.
The solution to stop all bullying is to inform every student on the effects and the consequences that bullying does to other people.
Stopping bullying is a social responsibility. We should take part of it. We should stop it at our home, stop it at our school, and stop the future generations from suffering from such.
Paano ihinto ang pagbubuli? Lahat tayo, sabay-sabay ngumiti.
Ang pagbabago ay magsisimula sa atin. Lahat tayo dapat maging masaya.
Stopping bullying should start from our home.
And we should promote the advocacy of stopping bullying.
I'm Kenny Magazine, multimedia artist, and I'm against bullying.
I'm Gabriel Ramirez, blogger, and I'm against bullying.
I'm Julie Valencia, photography enthusiast, and I'm against bullying. 私はケイコアラマキです。学生へ、私はいじめに反対です。
Alfiler po, advertising student, tayo sa mga bully.
Washer Kikitan, Washer Multimedia Artist, Wapuya o Bullying.
Ako si Mara Villapanto, musikero, kaya ako sa mga bully.
Stop bullying!
Hi everyone and welcome to MomTalk LA. It's an honor to have with me today Shirin Yadegar, LA Mom Magazine. That's right. She's been on MomTalk many times and it's always a pleasure to have her. Today's hot topic, bullying. We're talking about bullying. It's the month of raising awareness in our homes, in our schools, in our community on how to deal with and handle with aggression in our communities. And God knows this past year, I don't know about you, but this past year has been such a chaotic, aggressive year.
Absolutely, for everyone, all
For
around the world.
everyone.
Absolutely.
I mean, you turn on the TV and there's talks of war and fighting and just people being at each other's throat. And so I just feel, as a mom, as a community member, as a social activist, as someone who's passionate about peace learning, you know, I'm committed, it's in my heart, that we gotta have these conversations more and also empower ourselves as well as you, our viewers, to take active stance and steps and make change and it starts with you, right? It starts with me and it starts with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. The conversation at home, at the dinner table, sets up the stage. How we treat our children sets up the stage for how they will treat others. And there should be zero tolerance for bullying.
Zero.
All around the world.
I am so with you on
Zero,
that.
zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance.
Yeah.
There could be lots of love,
Yes.
but the love can be communicated in zero tolerance for aggression.
Absolutely.
You parents out there who think being aggressive is good
No.
and it's your way of getting ahead in life and being competitive and being on it. And I've heard parents, in my office, I have moms and dads who go back and forth. Usually it's the mom who says, listen, I'm tired of my husband pushing my son to be aggressive, especially when we're at parties, especially when we're out and the about. You know, it's really breaking us apart as a family
course.
because our intent is to have peace learning. But then my husband believes that by being aggressive and just holding, and it could be cultural. We were talking about this, the cultural
Absolutely.
roots of it, that, you know, poru is good, right? Be poru. Go
Poru
get
is
what-
not good.
You know, so that's an important conversation to have. And differentiating. What is poru? Okay, poru could be you're not going to miss your chance. Yes, if it is yours and it belongs to you, don't miss your chance. I'm all for that.
But that's for standing up for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean you have to be aggressive because you can get what's yours in a very kind and quiet way. The louder you scream and the more you push doesn't mean you're going to get what you
But
want.
you've seen these kids at birthday parties,
Oh, it's
right?
awful.
Who just are aggressive.
It's awful.
They're out there. And so I hear and I listen to conversations of parents who praise those children and say, oh my gosh, look at so-and-so. He's such a go-getter. No, that has nothing to do with being a go-getter and being aggressive, you know, and being just mean.
It
Sometimes
is.
it's just meanness. It's
It
plain out
is.
meanness.
It is.
So having these conversations, like you said, at the dinner table.
It's really important. I mean, we talk about it when we have birthday parties and the piñata, for example, like
Right.
everyone's rushing to grab the candy for the piñata and you get trampled on and no one thinks, oh my gosh, wait a minute. And I tell my girls, you know what? Sit back, let everyone gather, and in the end, someone will give you a few candies. You don't need to jump on top of everyone. And guess what? If you don't get it, I'll take you to the store later and we'll get some candy. But you've got to learn. And by the way, if you are the one who gets all the candy, learn to give and share. And you know, we're all a community. So I know it sounds very trivial when I say a piñata, but it's a perfect example of everyone jumping in to get what they want. But you know what? You'll all get yours. And I really want my kids and all of their friends and our community to grow up being kind, taking care of each other. It's not about, I'm going to push you over so I can get to the front of the line.
Right,
That's
right.
not kind.
And what if that happens? What if you are by the piñata and a kid is super aggressive and pushes another child who's usually, you know, not as powerful, and so you're witnessing that. So don't we have a social responsibility then to teach our children to say, listen, if you see someone at the receiving end of aggression, then take a step. Stand up for them, be kind, and have empathy. Give them a hug. Maybe share your candy with them.
Yes.
Maybe that's the position that you ought to reinforce.
Absolutely. I
and
think
encourage
empathy
and praise.
empathy is the most important thing in all of this. And I think it's empathy of understanding where your children are coming from as well, because it's easy for us to just tell them what to do. I think it's much harder when you're living in a world, especially as a tween or a teen, and you're living in this world and a lot of it isn't even face to face, but it's online, and you're thinking, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to navigate through being really bullied and having people make me feel badly? How am I not going to turn around and be aggressive and try and make them tit for tat feel bad as well? Because that's the easy way out, right? Someone treats you badly, then you post something negative about them, and it just goes back and forth, and it's a mishmash. So instead, I think we have to empathize with our children and say, what happened?
Right.
And I understand how you're feeling and mirror to them what's happened in that situation and hopefully help them resolve it.
And not reacting at the time or
Right.
moment when we are witnessing and
Yes.
observing the aggression. Because listen, every one of us, you and me and you, have that innate drive for competition, for aggression,
Sure.
for wanting to dominate.
Yeah.
So it's domination or dominance versus submission. Love versus aggression.
Right.
We are born, it's innate. We are born with these tendencies as part of our temperament. You can see this in babies and newborns. There's some who are active and they react a little
Yes.
more, and some who just sleep through the night and they're not as reactive. And so understanding everyone's nature and how to cultivate peace within that nature. So you're competitive and you have grit and you have that drive, then go for it. Let's find a peaceful path for you. Let's help you connect to that peaceful, kind path, empathetic, compassionate path, as well as self-compassion, because I believe strongly there's a strong connection between aggression that is intentional and intended for the other and lack of self-compassion. Whenever I see a child react with aggression, I'm always asking this question, what are they missing? What need is not being met? And you might find this funny, but you know, we have these lovebirds, these new pets, lovebirds, that sometimes I just love love to watch them because as soon as the food and the water is low or, there's a scarcity, you see these two creatures that are always, sitting next to each other and kissing each other and being so in love. As soon as the food and water supply is low, oh my goodness, just watching these two birds go at it. I mean, they're like fighting and territorial and attacking each other. And so that's nature. That's nature. So understanding that when someone is reacting in a mean way, intentional mean way, it's because a need is not being fulfilled.
Yes.
And so if we're around or, we're part of that community and we witness this, then perhaps we have a social responsibility also as adults to make sure that those needs are met.
Yes. We do.
And to take care of other kids besides our own.
Absolutely. We're all in the same community. Your kid is my kid. We're all in one. We've got to take care of our own because these kids are all growing up. They're the future.
Right.
So it's not about getting my own and my kids and making sure they've got the best. Because if your kid doesn't have the best, my kid's going to suffer. They're going to all suffer together. 100% agree. I think that the map has changed a lot as well, though, which is frightening because I'll have my girls come home and say, Mom, why is it that the popular girls, whatever, however you want to define that, why are the popular girls mean? And I said to them, what do you mean by that? Can you explain that to me? Well, they're the girls that are very exclusive. They don't include everyone. They post negative things about other kids and they're just nasty. But when you see them face to face, it's not like they're pushing you in the hall, Mom, or anything, but they just give you that nasty look and they're exclusive and they move away and turn their back to you. And they're talking about this and I said, well, that's just plain nasty, and there's something at home that's missing, right? And so, exactly, when I know who this girl is, I can easily pick up the phone and call Mom, and we have the conversation. I think it's our duty as parents to call other parents and have that conversation. But what do you do, Dr. Nelly, when you don't know this family, and you're at a new school, and this is a new kid? Do you pick up the phone and call some stranger and say, by the way, your kid's...
Well, I think you need to have those moments where you're cultivating relationships. So it's a good wake-up call for us to just understand, okay, so I need to know more of this child or this teenager or this tween and their family system. It becomes part of your cognitive map. But what we can do as parents, especially if we don't have rapport and we don't have those relationships yet, is to help and equip our children, our teens, our tweens, with social skills, with intrapersonal and intrapsychic skills so that they can take care of themselves, so they can understand that having those healthy boundaries is really good, and that what happens outside of that boundary is not who they are, is not related to their identity as much as they think it is. I always like to say, especially to teenagers, because I know they're going through a lot of hormonal changes and ups and downs and different moods. I like to say to them, whenever you're in a situation where you're experiencing conflict, intentional meanness, aggression, take a moment, pause, try to get more centered and just dial it down by 3. So if it's a really awful situation, dial it down by 3. That's probably closer to the truth of the matter, your sweet spot.
Sure.
And so it should help you differentiate, integrate, and understand this situation more. And always in the back of your mind, think of, there's something missing. Someone's needs, are not being fulfilled here. And understanding what your needs are, your friends' needs, perhaps if you're not really good friends with them, you don't know their family, then that's going to be a question mark for you until you get to know them, if that's something you want to do. But understanding how to protect yourself within those relationships and knowing that just because someone was intentionally mean to you does not mean that, you need to entangle and be involved in that situation.
Right.
You can remove yourself. And just observe it like a thought. And I know you meditate with your kids, and I meditate with my kids. I think the best gift we can give to our children is teaching them to just observe those thoughts. So the negative thoughts that they're having, just watch it come and go.
100%.
And it's not who you are. It's not your essence. It's merely just a thought.
Yes.
And the person who's being intentionally mean to you, it's just a thought.
Right.
And it will come and go. Sure, they need to know how to protect themselves, how to get help, how to reach out, how to cultivate maybe the healthy social skills that are going to benefit them and deepening the relationship. But oftentimes, and you know, girls and boys, they know this. When someone is being mean to you, unfortunately, there is a need for that person to connect. So it's just like the problem of addiction. When there is a need to connect, it spirals into this negative aggression. Sometimes it's inward, sometimes it's outward. So for the people involved in those situations to understand, okay, let's take a moment, let's take a deep breath, let's just focus and shift our focus onto self-compassion.
Yes.
You know, why am I feeling empty at this time? How can I fill myself? How can I fill my love bucket? How can I connect to people who are available and are willing to love me and be with me just the way I am? So how they navigate through these situations is really important in cultivating character and peace.
No, it is. It is absolutely. I went to a rape treatment center luncheon where I heard these incredible speakers. And something that someone said that really resonated was when you are entering new schools, right, which is when bullying occurs, or when you're 6th grade and up through high school, you have social status, right?
Yes.
Which is where a lot of the bullying starts.
That's right.
And the wannabes, right? The ones who really, really want to be the popular kids are trying so hard, they're the ones who are going to bully. Because they have no other way of finding an avenue, like you're saying, find a way to love yourself, self-love, and to find ways to connect with others. They can't do that. They have a hard time finding that avenue. And so what do? They bully. And who do they bully? They bully the ones who they think are a direct threat to them. So they don't go and bully the kid in the corner who's minding her own business. They bully the kid who think might take their spot. Right? So your kid who's athletic and beautiful and smart and kind, who's just kind to everyone, she's going to get targeted. She's going to get targeted because maybe those really popular kids are going to want her as a friend and push this wannabe out. And so they spoke about how do we cultivate, how do we deal with this kind of situation? And it made a lot of sense because they said, when this kid comes to attack you, right? You move away. And each time you move away, and when they see that you're no longer a threat to them and that you're not trying to climb to the popular group, they're not going to bother you anymore. They're going to find the next group. And so that's been my conversation with my girls is when you get picked on, when someone says to you, you're ugly, or you're this, or you're that, you know, just look and walk away. Because when you engage with them, you're just going to escalate the situation. And I think it's important to tell our kids that they're not the problem, that there is nothing wrong, that they are strong and they're great, and then we have to give them, like you said, the resources, and that we're here to empathize and to listen, but to also tell them, as you said, disengage. Do not engage in this behavior with kids who are trying to put you down.
I totally agree. Disengagement is step one. Step two is trying to engage in the community who's loving, so building that support system. And I know these girls are amazing. These boys are amazing. The amount of social and emotional intelligence that the kids today, this next generation, have is just incredible.
It is incredible.
I mean, when you sit down and really have those deep conversations with the next generation, you realize that the level of intelligence across the board, spiritually, socially, emotionally, is really impressive. So on many levels, they're equipped with understanding how to navigate through some of these conflicts and situations. And I have to say, sometimes as parents, we have to remove ourselves and be conscious of their level of consciousness. Because I have to say, in several situations, just this past year, my children, my 10-year-olds, have given me advice in how to handle those conflicts.
Yes, isn't it amazing?
It's amazing.
It really is. It
so
really is.
They come up with very creative ways, you know, Mom, no. And I always hear this, Mom, that's how you guys used to deal with it in the olden days, right? And they use humor a lot more. They know how to diffuse situations a lot better.
They really do.
They're incredible. So giving them that leadership position, letting them lead, not trying to project or get in there, you know, every time. Because sure, you know, we have our own issues and we have our own baggage. And like you say, you know, the cultural variables and the multicultural communications, I think trying to stay more neutral. But mentorship is always wonderful. And so I know we have wisdom, we have been through it, and there's so much that we can share, but also giving those young voices a platform that they can work through and deal through those conflicts, and also not to demonize. I think one thing that I would recommend to all parents, don't demonize. This is a big problem with bullying. Do not label a child as the bully or the mean girls or the popular girls. It does not work. It hurts your community forever. So as parents, we have to be responsible. Every child has a new day when they go to school, and it's a new day for every single student, every single kid. That day, they can choose to rise above, be more conscious, just like that. So the mean girl who, you know, the mean girl could be an amazing, compassionate human being that day. And so by not labeling, by not putting those projections onto these children, I think we are doing our community a service. And also
100%.
Teaching. The other day, you know, my daughter, she called me on a hesitation to cultivate peace. She said, "Mom, you need to give this person a second chance." And she was right on. It was my reaction and my maternal instinct because I'm overprotective.
We all are. Of course.
But she called me on it, and I loved it. And I paused, and I looked at her, and I, you know, gave her a hug, and I said, "You're absolutely right. And I love your compassion. I love your heart. And I love that you can look beyond and not label."
That's why it's important to listen to them.
That's right. So listen to your children, engage in those conversations. And I love the mealtime conversations. I love the car conversations. Oh my goodness.
Because you've got them hostage. Wonderful. You've got them hostage in the car. It's a perfect opportunity to talk about. You know, I never get in the car now. I've learned instead of saying, "How was your day?" Well, there's no answer to that, right? So like they'll get in the car and they'll say, "So what happened with so-and-so today? And how was your teacher in this class? And what happened in that class?" So at least you get specific answers. And who did you sit with at the lunch table? And, you know, whatever. At least you get specific answers, and then it opens up a whole avenue to these conversations that can be deep for those 20 minutes in traffic in LA, you know, in the car, which is great.
And also, what I find really amusing these days is cultivating empathy through me being vulnerable with them. So I have taken sort of this step, this conscious, intentional step to sharing some of the difficulties, some of the moments where I've failed in the day or that week, some of the challenges I have, perhaps as a parent, as a spouse, as a daughter, as a sister, as a community member, and also reflecting on my personal experience in the world as a global citizen. And I can't tell you that has opened up this wonderful opportunity for them to come in, because many times they're interested, they're curious to learn more also about you. You know, it's not a one-way street that for us to be so curious about them. They need to also learn about us. And what I've realized is that has allowed them to shift focus and to get curious about someone else. So outside of them, it's cultivation of that interpersonal peace learning path, right? And oftentimes, you know, it's good to allow children to reflect on others' experiences, you know, how did so-and-so do, and shift their attention. Because what I'm noticing more and more, especially when I'm at circles where kids are sharing, you know, there's so much focus on them because we have raised them in a very child-centered world. So it's not their fault. It's just that they have experienced a lot of attention on them. And so they don't know how to connect as much as we used to, because we used to be more interactive, and it was a little more balanced, maybe a little more parent-centered.
It was. Well, it was more about kids just come along for the ride, and then they do as we say. And now it's like we want to just please them. So you're absolutely right. To make sure they're not the center of the universe is extremely important. And to share, I love that. I'm going to start sharing with them my issues and problems. I think that's great. I love that.
Yeah, you do as well, okay?
I think that's great.
This is how you can cultivate empathy.
Absolutely.
The first step to cultivation of empathy is being vulnerable. And you can probably relate, because when you're talking to a girlfriend, the minute that you share of your vulnerabilities or a vulnerable side of you, you can feel the deepening of your connection with that person.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with kids. It happens. And, so that's something that I'm consciously and intentionally doing these
Love that.
days.
I'm going to start
Yeah.
doing it today on my pickup from school.
Awesome.
For sure.
So back to the stop bullying, or I like to call it raising awareness of bullying, because bullying will never stop. Human nature is aggressive, as animals. We're aggressive. The birds, the lovebirds, people, the lovebirds are fighting. So we have that innate aggression. But how do we raise awareness? And what is peace learning? How do we cultivate peace learning? It's not banning, it's not stopping, it's just raising consciousness and awareness. And it starts with me, it starts with you, and it starts within our family system, the familial roles, right? So being honest about it, being, I think, when we snap, just catching it and saying, wow, like that was, that was an angry voice, or I snapped, and I'm so sorry. Like, where did that come from? Some parents like to label it. They call them characters. I had a mom who said, I call that side of me the big bad wolf. And I was like, poor Wolfie. What did the wolf do? But yeah, come up with creative names for your characters.
Sure.
And we do have many shades, right? As personalities, as human beings, I think our shadows and our shades are multicolor and rainbow, and so it's good to model. I think, to reflect and let children know that yes, your core should never change, of course. Your core is always there and your essence. But depending on the situation, there are many situations like lack of sleep, lack of food, lack of love, lack of, right?
Yeah.
The lacks and lacks and lacks. And so depending on that, you're going to project or react or be a certain way. You're going to have some color, some aura. Energy based on your internal state and whether those needs are being met or not.
Sure.
So have awareness, know what your needs are.
Yes, absolutely. And try and fulfill your needs throughout the day when you can before you're dealing with your family, because I think it helps make you a happier person when you see them.
Yeah.
And dealing with your family is a lot. I mean, there is no bigger job in the entire world than being a parent, especially a mother. So I think that, yes, we have lots of shades, but I think learning to control those shades and learning to really be present when you're with them and being engaged so you can really hear them when they're talking. Yeah. Hear them. Because I think so many times our kids will come home and have an awful day where maybe they were bullied or mistreated, but we're so caught up in our own thoughts and our own things that we're not listening. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important to leave your shades when you're with them. Really try to focus and listen and hear them. I just saw the play Dear Evan Hansen, and the mother came out and she said, how did I not know, like his friend had committed suicide. How did I not know? How did I not know that you were feeling pain? Because she was busy. And so we think sometimes we're really engaged in hearing our kids, but we're not. We've got to listen. We've got to be there. We've got to listen to them and hear them out. I think that's the only way we can empathize and empower and be a part of.
And being attuned to your children's internal state. I always say the cognitive map of your child. You gotta have the feeling that you have a really good understanding of their cognitive map. And so knowing all those shades, who your child is, listening to them, like you say, with an open heart and an open mind without projecting, just consciously, intentionally listening to them. And this is also perhaps related to some of our upbringing. I think culturally, there is that. Most parents, most families that I work with who are experiencing a lot of high conflict suffer from not knowing how to listen.
Yes.
Because they're constantly, when they're listening, they're thinking about what they're going to say, or they want to dominate the conversation, or they want to project or interject, or there's so much emotional entanglement, so the shades get all mixed up. They don't know who they are, they don't know where they stop and where the other person begins. So that linkage is without much differentiation. And when you have linkage without differentiation, there is a lot of tension and chaos as opposed to integration, which leads to bliss and happiness and wellness and mental health. So we want to know who we are. We want to be familiar with all our shades, but we also want to have healthy boundaries so that we can differentiate and know, okay, this is who I am, this is how I'm feeling, I'm perfectly capable of regulating those feelings or those shades. I can integrate, but I can also link to my child, and I'm very much aware of their shades and their integrations and their space, their mental space and their head space. But being present, it requires presence, it requires day in, day out work. Hard work. I mean, I sweat at this because it's such hard work.
Of course, it is hard work, but it's rewarding because then you know what's going on with your child. You truly know. There are no real surprises. I mean, growing up, I think you're right. It was like our parents just wanted to solve all our problems. Right. And thankfully now we're becoming more educated about how to parent, and we're saying, wait, if we solve all their problems, they're never going to be able to deal with their lives as they grow.
Right on.
And so we listen, like you said, and we don't interject and tell them what to do. Sometimes they just want to talk. They don't want us to give them an answer.
Yep.
They just want to say, this is what happened today. I just need you to listen to me. Please listen to me. That's all they want. And we listen. And we keep that all here. So when we need it later on, then we can say, hey, you know what? X, Y, and Z. But I think it's just, it's so harmful to our relationship with our children if we're constantly telling them what to do and how to act and how to solve. They'll never be able to critically solve anything in their lives.
Yep. Raising an Adult, one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
Julie is incredible. She is so powerful in sort of narrating, telling her own narrative, her own parenting experience, as well as having been the dean of Stanford University for many years and witnessing the family dynamics and how overpowering or over-controlling parents step into the interview and that dynamic and how it interferes with the growth, the healthy growth, the autonomy, the freedom, the individuation of that student. And so it's so important to raise an adult. It's so important to value, to honor our children from very young age and to cultivate that character, to work on cultivation. Yes, it could be mutual. Sometimes we need to be a mentor. Sometimes we have to provide the parenting voice, the narrative. We have to put the narrative together for them so that they can start to build and make sense of their lives. But we need to be removed from that space, that sacred space of growth that is very individual, it's very autonomous, and it's very sacred. And honor it and to celebrate it. You know, we're entering a new decade for our twins' sort of journey into tweenhood and teenhood, and so I'm so excited for them because I was sharing with Shirin earlier that, you know, they have become much more conscious of their growth into this next decade of their lives, and they articulated it so well as, you know, how they wanted to celebrate, how they wanted to connect and story tell and be part of that growth experience. So as a parent, we're so honored and pleased to witness that, and I can't wait to see this next decade and see, you know, the growth that they're about to experience on a different level. Right. And I know you've gone through many decades,
yes.
and
it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But I think you're right. I think when we allow them to kind of grow and just kind of sit on the sidelines. I think that's our job as parents. Sit on the sidelines and just help them. And if they have questions, then we can help them through that. But let them navigate. Let them find their interests. Let them find, I think if they really do what they're happy doing, if they find their interest and take classes that they like and so on and so forth, they're going to be happy. They're not going to bully because there's going to be no reason for them to. Right. They're not going to be they're not going to, they're just going to navigate their lives because they are self-aware. And they're regulating themselves. It is so important for us not to say, hey, you know what? You need to be doing this and this and that, because if you do this and this and that, you'll end up going to Stanford or Yale. No. That's going to create them to have all this animosity. Anxiety and possibly depression. Bully and I mean, all of that. Yep. So, I mean, I think like you said, when you want a peaceful community, it goes into, and I think if we teach our children this, which I'm trying really hard at home to do, they then share that with their friends who are anxious.
That's right.
You know, my eldest daughter is now in high school, and a friend of hers came in and was just bawling. And she was talking about how she's got all this pressure because she'll be the first to go to college, and it's her ticket to Harvard because she's African American, and she's got straight A's, and she's really smart, and she's a big soccer player on X, Y, and Z. And my daughter turned to her and said, "This is your life. This is not your parents' life. Do what makes you happy." You know? So I think that our children, if we can mentor them, they can mentor others, and it creates peace,
learning and cultivation
all around.
Self-compassion.
Yes.
Self-compassion.
Yeah, very
so
important.
we want to raise awareness on bullying and how to manage and how to deal with bullying when it happens in our community. There's a great clip that we're going to show you, and then when we come back, we'll talk about raising awareness regarding bullying and how we can teach our children, our teens, our tweens, our juniors, our next generation to cultivate peace and to step up and stand up and really take a risk to be courageous, to step up for someone else who's suffering or is receiving the aggression.
Scrawny, chubby, short,
queer.
Getting caught up in bullying, it's so easy because you're just glad that you're not being bullied.
It's been hard for me to stand up for other people because I feel like I'm already a target.
It's just easier to do nothing.
Please stop.
Fine.
Dude, ow.
Fine.
Stop.
Fine.
Ow, stop.
Do you have any friends?
Yes, I heard you.
What are you even doing here? It's almost too easy.
Stop.
Come on.
I get it.
Maybe you are a little bit more. Oh.
You think you're special?
One Whopper Junior meal.
Dude, stop.
You're fine. Oh.
I just opened it up and it's all smashed.
Did you order bullied or unbullied?
Bullied or unbullied?
Yeah. Do you have a manager that I can speak to? Because that doesn't even make any sense. Hi, your manager.
Hi, how's it going?
I was given this.
Did you bully this burger?
Well, yeah. This is a defenseless Whopper Junior. He can't defend himself.
I don't mean anything by it.
It's just for
It's
laughs.
just for laughs.
Just give me my burger, man.
What is going on here?
What are you? Is there something wrong with you?
Because that's clearly what happened.
Can't be serious. Had you seen me bullying this burger, would you have stood up and said something?
Yeah.
It's good to know.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah. What's your name?
Reed.
Hi, Reese.
We're just having fun.
You having fun? He's not having fun. So therefore, I think you guys should just leave him alone.
See you later. This feels better to me.
Have you ever been like messed with before?
Oh my God. I mean, like the ideal world is where if somebody else sees like something weird happening, that they'll come over and be like, "Hey, this is not okay."
Yeah.
To feel defenseless, that's one of the worst things in the world.
Chelsea came and she would just tell them that it's not okay because it isn't.
Something I'll never forget is my friend standing up for me.
I've been that kid, so if I see it, I'm gonna do something about it. And I hope there's more people out there like that.
So if you see it, you will stand up and do something about it. Will you stand up? Will you teach your children or your teens or your teenagers to stand up and take a risk? It's not the popular thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. And I think more and more when we have those deep conversations with our kids, starting very young, we need to teach them about the value and the love and the compassion that comes from taking a risk, being courageous, and standing up for someone who's at the receiving end of aggression. And it doesn't mean for them to get hostile, to confront, or to engage with the aggressor. All it means is to extend a warm, loving hand to the person who's suffering, who's hurting, and could use a friend, which is good for them, for your child, as well as the child who is suffering, and it's also good for the community and the world. And you're cultivating empathy, compassion, and self-compassion when you encourage your children to do that. So what do you think, Shirin?
Well, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's dinner talk. You sit at the table and you talk about compassion. And you always, always in life have to do the right thing. Whether it's watching someone being bullied, whether you're at a market and you see someone grab a gum and stick it in their mouth, you always have to do the right thing. And I think it's our job as parents to teach our kids to have a moral compass and to navigate and to always do what's right. Even if it's painful, it will be rewarding in the end, and you've got to do what's right. You cannot sit in the sidelines and watch someone being bullied. That's not even a choice. I mean, I would say that I have failed as a parent if my kids do not interject if they were to be in that Burger King. I just think that that's zero tolerance. There is zero tolerance. And I got chills all over my body watching that, thinking that people were really just sitting and watching a kid being bullied. It's not okay. So it is our job to raise our kids with the knowledge and to feel empowered. Our kids have got to feel empowered to stand up always for what's right.
That's right. So stand up.
Always
step
stand up.
Always. And I feel like also as, women are experiencing a lot of girl power, and there's
Yes.
a lot of talk around girl power.
Girlup.org.
Yeah, right? You need to cultivate that. Use that energy, use that momentum to
Yes.
say, yes, so if a friend looks sad, even because they're micro expressions. So we're not talking about this clip where the person is visibly
Yes.
being an aggressor.
Yes.
We're talking about micro expressions, rolling the eyes or flicking the hair.
Anything.
Or the micro expressions of aggression when it's intentional.
Yes.
The people within that proximity who witness it, who see it, don't need to engage or confront the aggressor, but they have a responsibility, a conscious responsibility, a compassionate responsibility to step up and make sure the person
is
who was at the receiving end is feeling okay. They're
Yes.
feeling love. They're
Yes.
getting, because guess what? For every 5 times that you are engaging in an act of kindness, you can get away with 2 or 3 times of meanness or mean aggressive behavior. So if you're in a community or an environment where you're witnessing 3 aggression or aggressive acts, right? Aggression behavior.
Right.
You can diminish it by cultivating and engaging in 5 acts of compassion.
Love that.
So aggression versus compassion, 3 to 5. Remember that ratio. Gottman talks about this in his research with marital relationships, with couples. There's a sweet spot there that you can outbeat, you can diminish aggression if you take the responsibility to engage in 5 acts of kindness, compassion, and love.
Right.
So love will win.
Always.
Love always wins.
Always, always. And it may not even be bullying. It may be, my daughter was running on the track at PE. She fell, she tripped, she hit her face, and there was blood everywhere. It was a disaster. One person stopped running, picked her up, said, "Are you okay?" She said a bunch of the boys who shouldn't even know were laughing, which there's no reason to laugh. You don't know, So the kid who picked her up and said, "Are you okay?" changed her whole day.
Yeah.
And then later other kids throughout the day, as they saw her big fat lips, said, "Are you all right? Do you need anything? Can I get you some ice?" That's an act of kindness.
Yeah.
You don't stand and watch someone fall and trip because it could happen to you as well. So we should always choose to be kind. It's just it's just a no-brainer. It shouldn't even be a discussion. It should just be the way that we are that's the way we live.
But we got to teach it, we got to cultivate it, and we got to repeat it. Especially for children, they need to hear it close to 10,000 times. So don't forget, it's not given. You have to talk about it and cultivate it.
And they need to see it. They need to see you model it.
That's
you have to
right.
model the
That's
behavior.
Right.
You know,
that's actually the most powerful tool
you
of
have
teaching.
to model. Absolutely,
you need to model.
Yes.
So when someone is hurt within your proximity, or the other day we were walking into Starbucks and an elderly gentleman was coming, the opposite direction. The kids were really excited and wanted to rush in, and I said, no, hold on, wait. And I held their hands very gently and kindly, and I said, let's give this gentleman, let's hold the door for him.
Yes.
And the gentleman was very pleased, and he smiled at them, and he said, wow, good role modeling. And those are the small moments when we take a moment, we pause, and we let this cultivation of compassion and love and peace happen in real time. It's not going to happen in fantasy, and peace is not a dream. Peace is hard work, people. It's every day in and out. And so if you want peace, which I think we all do, because it's that tranquil state where we feel bliss and joy. I think as human beings, we like peace and equilibrium. So let's work for it. Let's value it. Let's model it. Don't encourage your child to be the best and the number one. Because guess what? If your child is best, then someone else next to them is not. And so they're feeling the pain that they're not in that top position. So I always say to my kids, I say, you don't want to be the top and you don't want to be on the bottom. You want to find a sweet spot for yourself where you're feeling fulfilled.
Right. And what does it mean anyways? What does it mean to be the best, and what does it mean to be at the bottom? And I think in these days, the beauty of the way these kids are growing up is that the creativity and the way that the world works is that everyone could be great in different facets in different places, and it's not about rushing to the top, right? And racing to the top. Just be kind, be good, and it'll all map itself out. Everything will,
It will all work out,
It
people.
will. It will.
So raise awareness. This is an important month.
Very
I know
important
we're
month.
also celebrating Cyrus the Great and honoring his birthday and honoring peace learning and his leadership. He has brought so much sacred wisdom. If you get a chance, read up on some of his theories, the shift that he had from power, domination, to love, peace, and cultivation of peace. I think it's got a very deep ancient root. It teaches us tolerance. It teaches us about how we can uplift each other, how there's room for everyone, how there is room for growth, and that if we're focused on infinite growth for us, for your family, for your community, for your society, everyone benefits from it. So it's very valuable, and I think as people with Persian heritage, it's great to tell those stories. The narrative is very important. Now there are Harvard studies showing that when you share those stories and when you intentionally focus on the gist of peace learning embedded within those stories, you're actually cultivating peace learning within the brain. So take advantage of it. Shirin, it's a pleasure to have you on Mom Talk.
Oh, I love being with you. I always
Until
learn
next
so much from
time.
you.
Me too. I love you. Until next time.
We'll see you next time, ladies.